effort equals more yield. Dig deeper, hill higher, water more, add more inputs. But what if that equation is wrong? This season, a simple test was set up to challenge that assumption. 2 methods, same soil, same weather, same seed potatoes. The only difference was how they were grown. On one side, the traditional approach, deep digging, careful spacing, repeated hilling. The method most gardeners trust. On the other, something almost too simple to take seriously. Seed potatoes placed directly on the surface, covered with a thick layer of straw, and then left alone. No trenches, no digging, no hilling. The goal wasn't theory, it was proof. And by the end of the season, the result wasn't subtle. It was impossible to ignore. The straw-covered bed didn't just perform better, it produced nearly 10 times the harvest. At first, that kind of result feels unbelievable. For decades, potatoes have been treated like a crop that needs force, buried deep, constantly managed, and shaped by labor. But this older method tells a different story. Instead of forcing the plant into compacted soil, it creates a loose, breathable environment, more like the conditions potatoes originally evolved in. The tubers aren't trapped beneath dense earth. They're surrounded by organic material that holds moisture, allows airflow, and gives them space to expand freely. And that changes everything. In the traditional bed, growth is limited. Each time soil is piled up around the plant, it compresses the space where new potatoes could form. But in the layered system, every added layer of straw becomes a new zone for growth. Instead of being restricted downward, the plant expands upward and outward. By mid-season, the difference was already clear. The exposed soil in the dug bed dried out quickly under the sun, needing frequent watering just to stay productive. After rain, the surface hardened, forming a crust that roots struggled to push through. But under the straw, the soil told a completely different story. Cool, moist, alive. Lift the mulch and you'd find earthworms, soft structure, and steady moisture, even during hot weather. That stability matters more than it seems, because when a plant isn't constantly fighting stress, it can focus on what actually matters, producing food. As the weeks passed, another pattern emerged. The traditional bed responded to fertilizer with taller plants and more leaves, but not significantly more potatoes. The layered bed stayed balanced, no excessive growth above ground, but beneath the surface, it was quietly stacking yield. And unlike the dug rows, there was no need to disturb the soil to check progress. You could simply pull back the straw, and there they were. Clean, undamaged potatoes forming in clusters, often above the original soil line, something that would be nearly impossible in compacted ground. Harvest made the difference undeniable. Instead of digging and risking damage, the process was as simple as lifting back layers of mulch and collecting the potatoes by hand. No broken tubers, no wasted effort, just volume. A lot of it. When everything was weighed and compared, the numbers had to be checked more than once. But they held. The layered method didn't just outperform the traditional approach, it completely redefined it. And here's what made it even more surprising. It required less work. No digging, no repeated hilling, less watering, fewer inputs, more output with less effort. That flips the entire idea of productivity on its head, because maybe the limitation was never the plant, maybe it was the system. Looking deeper into older agricultural records, it turns out this wasn't a new discovery at all. In parts of Eastern Europe and colder regions where labor and resources were limited, farmers had already figured this out decades ago. They skipped trenches, they used organic layers, and they focused on working with natural conditions instead of forcing them. But as agriculture became more standardized and mechanized, those methods slowly disappeared, not because they stopped working, but because they didn't fit the system. Even after harvest, the difference remained. The mulched bed left behind soft, rich soil filled with organic matter and life. Earthworms were more active. Water soaked in more easily. The dug bed, on the other hand, showed signs of compaction, tight, pressed soil that needed fixing before the next season. So the benefits didn't end with yield. They continued underground. But one question remained. If this method works so well in open ground, what happens when you take the same idea and apply it where space is limited? That led to a second experiment. Growing potatoes in containers. Instead of heavy soil, large breathable fabric containers were filled with a light, compost-rich mix. Seed potatoes were placed near the bottom, and as the plants grew, more material was added gradually, mimicking the same layered effect created by straw. The principle stayed the same. Loose structure, good airflow, stable moisture, no compaction. And the result? The containers didn't just perform well, they produced dense vertical harvests, potatoes filling nearly the entire depth of the container. In some cases, a single container matched what used to require an entire garden row. Now the pattern was clear. Whether in open ground or containers, the same conditions led to the same outcome: loose, undisturbed structure, consistent moisture, plenty of oxygen, remove compaction, and yield increases. By the end of the season, one thing stood out more than anything else. The 10 times more yield wasn't just about the numbers. It was about efficiency. More food per unit of effort, more output with fewer inputs, less strain on the soil and less strain on the person growing it. And maybe that's the real takeaway. Sometimes better results don't come from doing more. They come from doing less, but doing it differently. If you're curious, don't just take this